Hey everybody, I'm Tom Basil.
I'm Chris Yee.
And I'm Wendy Yee.
Today we're looking at a game that I was very anticipating called An Age Contrived. Not a bad name for a game. And I was kind of excited when I saw it at PAX a couple years ago because it's this big, grandiose fantasy world with a couple miniatures moving around the board. And then these things, which they showed off, these metal contraptions, which would shoot these things out. He showed me this, and I was sold instantly. It was a cool
Toy factor.
Cool gimmick. Well, it was. It also doesn't help that the tiles look like Azul tiles.
These are nice, big, easy to manipulate, easy to work with tiles, yes.
And I'm tired of the same old theming, so this new fantasy weird world appealed to me. So I was very excited to give this a try. So we'll take a look at how it plays, and we'll be right back. Two things real quick. First of all, I'm showing you the deluxe version of the game, which comes with these metal things, which takes, I would say, 20 to 30 minutes to build each. And they take a bit to figure out how to put together. I watched a video online. The first one took longer. After that, they were easier to build. But these are replaced with just a tile in the normal game. The second thing is I'm not going to be able to go over every rule in this game. I'm just giving you an idea of how the game plays. The game is going to revolve around energy, and each player is going to have their own character. There's a bit of asymmetrical here, where you have special abilities that you will have revealed as you build these bridges out here. Other than that, the characters are mostly the same. These energy squares here are going to be used throughout the game. There are 4 different types. There are 3 regular types, and then each character has one that is a wild. And you have your player board here with a recharge token, but this board here, the transmutation device, is kind of the whole point of this game. It has transmuter tiles on it, and it has energy in them. And we start the game, each player gets a card showing you how you put the different things in here. And the way the game goes is on a player's turn, they have 2 main type of turns that they can take. One of them is going to be the advanced turn, and then the other is the actions turn. The advanced turn means you're going to pick one of your 2 other transmutation tiles out here, and you're going to put it and just slide everything over like that. This one here will fall out and come back over here, and then the one that you just put in, you'll fill up with energy tiles. Now, if you have this recharge token, you can spend that to do it again if you want to, so I can move this again, although that would be a waste because I have energy over here. The action part of your turn is you can use the energy that's on the bottom to activate the actions that are down here. And these actions are going to do different things, but 2 of them, this one and this one. This one lets me expel one of the energy blocks in the last 2. And so in the regular game, you would just pick this up and put this energy on the board somewhere. In this deluxe version, you're going to pull this back and shoot that out. And the game actually has a bunch of these that you can build around here so it doesn't shoot all over the board. It doesn't always work as well as you want it to. Sometimes the tiles don't come out and you have to move this. Sometimes when you pull them out, they tilt in like that. But that's kind of what this metal device does. But really, when you do it, you're just taking this energy and putting it on the board. Other ones you can say, hey, I'm just going to refresh my recharge token. I'm going to move energy on the board. And this one lets you move your character, or it lets you move up these paths here. You can put an energy in here and move up here, which is going to let you build monuments and other things. The board is where the action is going to be, and you'll notice that there's some metal pieces sticking out of the board here. So these look like this, and at the beginning of the game, you'll put some in the board based on how many players are in the game. Then next to the board, on the side of the board, you are going to have these. They're going to be scattered around here. And one of the things that players, when they expel energy onto the board, you can put the energy on matching spots on these. Now, what happens is when this is fully built, then it's going to give rewards to each person who goes there. Depending on the kind of energy, will give you awards. And depending on what kind of tower, there will be some sort of random benefit that's at the beginning of the game specifically designed for that tower. And then whoever is the person who finishes it is going to be able to bind an energy to tower, which means you lose one of your energy for the rest of the game. But these can become very valuable and worth a lot of points at the end of the game. You'll then take that piece of the tower and attach it. This one goes right here, and it magnetically attaches to those metal things. Now the next piece is available to be built, and this is actually the game end trigger. As you build these, when all the monuments are finished, that's going to end the game, and you can see there's a 3D tower on the board. And there's all sorts of things. The one over here is a ship. There's like different buildings, but each one usually requires 3 energy, and the last one usually just requires 2. Now, as you're building these, they're going to give you rewards. They also will give you more energy. Players will have energy over here on the side, all your extra energy that you don't start the game with, and you'll pull that off. You get extra points for having that at the end of the game. Players are also sending energy to this spot here, where they can spend energy to take better of these transmutation tiles that they can put on their board. These tiles are also going to come with symbols on them, and these symbols will help you move up the tracks faster. Meanwhile, while you're doing all that, you're going to have a character on the board, and some of the actions are going to let you move your character around the board. There's some neutral bridges on the board, and as you move over a neutral bridge, you will get the bonus that's on it, and as time goes by, you will build your own bridges on the board. One of the actions will allow you to build bridges, and then when you pass over those, you'll get benefits too. So moving this person around the board is going to give you bonuses. And then moving up those tracks I showed you earlier will let you put out monuments, which give you points. Over here on the side of the board, you can send energy over here, bind energy to these spots to give you points based on different energy on the board. But that's basically the game. The game is about sending energy onto this board to get more tiles, to build these monuments out there, to get endgame victory points, or to put out these monuments, which again are endgame victory points. Once a certain amount of monuments are built, the game is over. There's a few other things. You're able to upgrade your action tiles so that they will do more things. Like I can upgrade it so that I can send out energy from any one of my spots, or I can do 2 of the first 3 spots, or I can move farther on the board. And then there's these other tiles which will kind of give you extra things. If you put them at the top of your board and you have these symbols match up, you'll be able to move farther or move up the tracks faster. There's a bunch of other rules, but most of the other rules have to do with the special abilities of the characters. Each player has a player aid here, which tells you your actions. Advance, which it's a lot more information here, but this is much shorter action than the actions action. And then inside, it tells you what to do when you finish a monument. Here's the different actions that are on the bottom of your board. Here's the icons, the different benefits that you can get from the board. And then each of the characters' abilities. As you build a bridge, you will get a level 1 ability, which will have to do with your wild tile. And then level 2, something more special. And then your level 3 is an endgame victory condition. And that's a little bit of how you play. Okay, so before we jump into the gameplay itself, real briefly, I mentioned the deluxe copy here. We're not putting the deluxe copy in the library. First of all, I'm glad they had a video on how to build these things, but this was kind of a ridiculous thing to put together. I built 1, or maybe 2, I don't remember, and then I had Wendy build the rest.
You built 1, and then you half-built 1 to show me how to build the rest of them. But yeah, it's a process, and you have to get all the pieces right, and then there's multiple colors, so that you have to choose, like you have to align the right colors.
Yeah, they make this big deal about each faction has 2 colors. Pick the color you want, yada, yada, yada.
And
you're
it's
like,
permanent.
I can't mess up because if you put the wrong one on the wrong side, then it doesn't work. It doesn't really matter, but then, so we built these things and everything, and that's all well and cool. They're not good for a couple reasons. One, there's these pieces here get bent.
Yes.
It's very thin metal, yeah.
Also, you might remember we were missing a neutral bridge. I couldn't find one. It was inside one of these things.
Really?
Yes. It barely fits in the box, and it's so fragile, these are going to scratch things up, and they get bent easily. But beyond that, they're worthless. Instead of picking a piece up and putting it on the board, I am shooting it out.
Like a pinball launcher. Boom!
Then picking it up and putting it on the board. There's no benefit.
Every single person that we've shown this to has assumed that this is a dexterity game. Yeah. And there are 0 dexterity elements to it.
But not only that, the pulling the thing out and putting them on there, it is kind of cool to do it a few times. And then you get involved in the game and you're like, it's just a waste of my time. It's just, you don't have time for this.
It also can mess up the lower pieces that you're not trying to flick out, because if you bump it too much, they like flip and they move.
And you have to have extra space in the board to have an area where you can shoot things out into.
They have like little cardboard blockers so that you aren't actually launching them into your opponents. It's an odd move. I have gone on record many times of being like, I don't need deluxe editions of games. This is by far the least sought after deluxe edition of a game that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, to the point where, again, like I said, we're putting the normal version in the library.
Yes.
Now, that being said, I do like the monuments in the middle that you build. Even though they're also a pain, because at the beginning of the game, you need to put those metal pieces under, and woe betide you if you're doing it by yourself, which I just did for the example. And you put one in, then you lift the board, the other one comes out, so you're trying to hold one in while you're putting the other one in.
It is beyond me that they were able to put magnets inside of cardboard pieces to stick it to the side, but they didn't put one on the bottom of the board.
So that they're not falling out as you're setting up the game.
Yeah, they just could have put the magnets on the board. That would have solved that problem.
Other than that, I like the art. I like the tiles themselves, the Zool type tiles. It all looks cool. There is a lot of symbology in the game. I don't think it's particularly intuitive.
I don't think it's very good symbology for the most part. We kept asking the same questions. What is this thing? And even when when it got answered, we asked 10 minutes later, what is this thing again? Because I haven't come across that action for a while. Oh, it's the same thing we were talking about. I couldn't even in the same half-hour span remember what a symbol did.
There's a symbol that looks like you're dipping something in water. And that has something to do with like the permanent discs coming out with the chapel.
Right, there's one that looks like you're pressing buttons on a cell phone, and that means wild. What?
Yes.
So, in a sense, I said at the beginning that I was tired of, I get tired of generic themes, and I want a unique theme. In this game, it hurts it so much sometimes, because even when you're reading the rules, it's talking about binding energy, and you're like, what, okay, hang on. And it has all these weird terms about transmutation and all that stuff, but because that theme is just words, like it's not anything you're actually doing, just putting tiles on the board.
Right.
It doesn't tie to the theme, and so I get confused and afraid.
Sweating bullets over there.
I think the theme works against the game.
I think you might not like this comparison, Tom, because what I would compare this to is kind of Vindication, where this is a big, expansive, trying to be very thematic Euro game, right? This is an efficiency puzzle of spending the resources in the correct way. And for me, Vindication was kind of one of the first ones I played that was like that, where I have this big miniature piece, I'm moving around the board, and I'm really converting cubes into cubes of other colors and stuff. And this one feels like a less focused version of Vindication. I think Vindication is fairly focused. It's like oddly trying to be thematic, and I look at it mostly as like collect these things, trade them in for other stuff. And that's what this one is, but without as much, for me, without as much of a focus of why am I moving my miniature around the map? I'm not really sure. I don't feel like a demigod. I don't feel like I'm transmuting energy into different sorts and building up these amazing monoliths of power. I'm just kind of putting blocks out there, and once it's filled up, then we go through the block are filled up stage. And then we move to the next step.
I agree. I don't disagree with the Vindication thing, but the difference is, I think Vindication's a fun game. I will even joke with people, hey, we're playing a Euro. This is the same thing, and I can bypass that, but my problem is I don't think this game is particularly fun.
I think that's where I am with this, because I don't really care about theme, typically. They know. But for me, mechanically, this is not interesting. The way, there are parts of it, like I think that the way that you're pushing in those actions and you're able to fill up the disc.
Yes.
I think that's clever. And I think that it's clever to build up buildings. And I feel like they took a bunch of mechanisms that were like, let's check off the interesting mechanism list. And they got it checked off, but they put it in such an uninteresting way, because the way that the turns, you have like super short turns and then super long turns. And then the strategic decisions you're making of which disc am I going to put out because they have special abilities when they, when you finish a building and they trigger off, is just, it feels so random. Like you don't know when stuff is going to trigger. You only get to be a part of it if you happen to have a turn where you could put out stuff before someone triggered it. Like that mix is not enjoyable.
Yeah, Wendy's listing like every problem I have with this game. There's just so many decisions, and you think, why was this decision made? Even in the rules, they're like, when you do the advanced action, you put the tile in, you fill it up, they're like, the next person can start going. I'm not the one slowing the game down. It blew my mind when I read the rules and it said, pick a tile at the bottom and do that action. I was like, okay, cool. Then like, repeat as many times as you want. I was like, are you kidding? So I can save up till I have maybe 6 actions and then slowly and carefully do them all while everyone else at the table is bored. Then Chris goes and goes, I'm advancing, and then it's back around again.
Yeah.
It's just that sometimes you can't help it in a game. You have to pick up the cards in Concordia or whatever. And your action isn't as big as the other actions, but those other actions shouldn't be 10 times as long as the one action.
You also don't have to take 4 in a row before you can do anything decent.
Well, you could do 1, 1, 1, 1, but I'd have to convince you to do that too for the game to be interesting.
Yeah, but then I haven't built up anything. I can only do that first action.
I think another thing that exacerbates that is that there's asymmetric player powers. So there's a lot of, at the beginning, hey, what does this power do? Hand me the rule book and the little guides and stuff. And that's fine. That's a first game problem. But as you get better at the game, as you unlock those bridges and you have more and more specialized powers, you have more ability to combo things into this game, which is already, as you're talking about, has a huge kind of a combo problem. I could do these 5 actions on my turn. Also, because I've unlocked these powers, it lets me reseed energy back onto my board so that I don't have to take the smaller, what do you call it, the advanced action, the reload. I don't have to do that as much because my board has upgraded so much that I can create combos into other combos. And so it just means that players are going to get bogged down in these details, in these decisions of minutia. Should I put the compass energy on the top or on the bottom over here? I don't care, but that does have implications later in the game. So there's just a lot of things that kind of slow it down, unfortunately.
And I think the game has a bunch of rules that are in place because they needed to put them in for game balance, but they are either unfun or confusing. For example, facing of your character on the board. Are you kidding me? How on earth should that matter in any non-miniature war game? That I need to worry about what direction and bounce off a wall and go back. And they had to do that because there's so many space on the board that do nothing. It's boring out there until you cross bridges. And even those bridges, that supposed to be strategic, feels immensely random where those bridges are. You're like, I'm going to put out a bridge. I guess I'll put it near my character because...
Then I can use it?
Yeah, I guess, well, there's also, if a bridge is in an area, you can build a monument type thing in that area.
Yeah,
there's
but I
some
build
of
a bridge there, and then someone builds that spot, and then it's useless.
The pillar of society.
Yeah, there you go.
But then there's also other rules like, if I buy something, everyone else was an energy in that spot. When I buy a new transportation tile, puts an energy there. And I'm sure it's in there for game balance, but it just feels stupid. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I spent some energy, so you get energy. And it just, someone's like, okay. And then the building the monuments, which should be the most fun part of the game, every time it happens, it's just like...
Am I part of this? If not, I'm going to go to sleep.
Yeah, I'm not part of it, which you could very well be, because I'm trying to figure out in a scaling of this game, which I think goes to 5. Well, I would never play 5. There's only 3 on each monument, ever.
There's only 3 spots to put stuff out, and once it shuts down, it interrupts the game flow. This is another thing that kind of stops the game flow, and then you go through this procedure. The positive I will say about it is that there's a lot of games that do the mechanism of the third person to complete, contributing something, get something, and the previous people don't. I hate that mechanism because if you don't really get good rewards for contributing to it, then everyone just kind of stays back. This game, you actively want to be involved in filling in those 3 spots.
But you can't because there's only 3, and so if you put 1 and Wendy puts in 2, I'm out.
I agree, but you are encouraged to do that. That's what I'm saying is the positive, is that it feels rewarding to just have even a single block there. You're like, yes, I get upgrades, I get reassignments and stuff. The downside is what you're talking about, that there's only 3 spots. Even in a 3-player game, you're getting shut out of those a lot.
Which makes the one that the compass one that lets you put it on another spot super useful.
Yes.
But then you're like, so that's clearly the best one. But then the other ones are important for other things, and you need diversity, and you need, Yeah,
one lets you put energy back in your machine. And I guess that's it. I know that when we post this review, people will be like, you have to get better at the game. And I know that I can see ways to get better, figuring out the energy. It's just that those ways aren't interesting to me. If I pull back from the game and look at it as a whole, it's not that fun. I want to build monuments. I want to buy new transmutation tiles, which incidentally, that's not interesting. Like, ooh, what does this tile do? One at the top, two in the bottom, and a running thing which matches this. I don't really want to run my character, but okay, I guess I'll buy it. Or I build this monument. Why? Well, it gives me a free bridge. That's cool. And also, as a side note, and this, you can argue it up the storm with me, not sure the player powers are balanced, but that could just be me, you know.
Sure.
In one game I played, you weren't in that game, that one person just ran away with the game, and it felt like their powers were better than ours. But that could just be a player thing. But at the end of the day, for me, I'm giving this game a 4. Now, let me phrase that. I would probably give it a 5, but those metal things annoyed me so much, I'm dropping it a point, okay? But it just feels like a mission. It's a long game, and at the end, I don't feel like I did much of anything. I'm like, okay, I put some energy out in these spots, transmutated the pillars of whatever, pillars of eternity or power or civilization, passive civilization, I'm confused. And then over here, I get points, and I have to count up my tiles, and it's like a mismatch, but during the game, I did a whole bunch of little annoying steps to get to that point.
I'm going to also give this a 4, and it's not because of the metal things. It's because, so to me, a 5, if I were to give this a 5, it would have to be this is a game that's not for me, but I could see it for somebody. I don't really see this for anybody because I feel like the board looks like it's supposed to be this tactical game of, ooh, I want to get my pieces in on all these different buildings, and I want to get those pillars of salt.
Society.
Yeah, something like that. So it feels like there's some tacticalness going on there, and it feels like there's some strategicness going on with the player board. But all of those things don't translate to a fun game. They don't translate to a game that I think makes sense. And so that's why this is a 4 to me, is because mechanically, I feel like, once again, we checked off boxes of, we like cascading, we like this, but they put it together in such a mash that I don't think it's good.
Well, I'll go with the score I was originally going into this, thinking, and I'll give it a 5. I feel like I should give it lower at this point.
No, you're stuck.
But no, I'm giving this one a 5.
Oh.
It has neat presentation. It has neat, and taking the deluxe over-the-top production out of it.
Sure.
Even the retail edition looks nice and everything, but I'm just not sold on the theme. I'm not sold on the fact that what you're doing in this game is thematic. I think that this feels meandering and is trying to kind of fit into the theme that they chose, but it doesn't succeed at getting me there. So it doesn't excite me there. It doesn't excite me mechanically because the game is so stilted with those very short turns, which I think loading up the device and the conveyor belt thing could be so intriguing and fun to do if the rest of the systems were a little bit more pruned down and focused. I think that's the biggest problem for me, is that this game feels unfocused. Moving around my character 6 steps. I didn't cross a bridge, so that turn did nothing. But I do have this synergy over here, which allows me to move this thing up, which allows me to... It just kind of feels all over the place. And then building up the monuments is so often a chore to get through that phase, especially, as you said, when you're not involved in one of those monument areas, you're just kind of zoned out for the next 10 minutes as people make chains of decisions that are hugely important, but not very fun. So,
I think unfocused is a very good word for this.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like everything is tied well together.
I really wanted to like the game. It's a tough teach. In fact, the first 2 pages of the rulebook are like, here's how to teach the game. Because you're trying to explain things, and there's a lot of, we're going to be binding energy. What does that mean? You're putting energy on the board.
put in a circle.
Yeah, in the circle. And there's a lot of, and then remembering what each energy does is very easy to forget. There's just a lot into it. I don't know. Like Wendy said, I don't know who this is for, but we're putting it in the library because there's some demand for it. We'll see what happens. But I suspect this will be one that is not for most people. But hey, if you love it, tell us in the comments.
Please do.
Yeah, tell us why you really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
We really want to know.
Well, until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Chris Yee.
And I'm Wendy.
And we're holding up the pillars of something. Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vassell.